Welcome to Behind the Warrior, a podcast presented by the EOD Warrior Foundation. This series will focus on resources, interviews, and topics impacting EOD warriors, their families, and the military community at large.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Behind the Warrior podcast. I'm your host, Maria Shabla, and today we are very excited to be speaking to Army EOD Veteran and volunteer extraordinaire, Henry VanNess. Welcome to the podcast, Henry.
Hey, this is fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. I am too. So, Henry, I always like to start from the beginning. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Where are you from and what was your childhood like?
Yeah, so I grew up in Central New York on the family farm, and went to school the whole time in my hometown. So I, in high school, played sports and did what normal high school thing, and then of course I loved being on the farm. There was always something to do. Sometimes it was hard work, and other times it was just, fun to learn to run equipment and all that kind of stuff.
What kind of farm was it?
Well, it was a crop farm, but also there was dairy. And then my father raised some chickens for a local hatchery for a while. So it varied over the years. But anyway, it was, we just enjoyed it. There was the hired man on my Aunt and Uncle's farm next door was very tolerant with us kids and let us do a lot of things, So anyway, and then we always look forward to the meals. At lunchtime, farmers a lot of times will have a big meal at lunch because you're going to work it off, and then in the evening they wouldn't have so much. Breakfast was a big deal. So they were always, you look forward to having real good, fresh food. So that was always fun.
That is so nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of the garden stuff, is so great. So
that sounds like a great way to grow up, Henry. So how did you end up in the military?
So after high school, I went to college and graduated with a degree in electrical electronics.
Mm-hmm.
But I went to work for the public schools. They were starting to do educational television and other stuff, so they needed technical people. And my professor happened to be in the middle of his hometown stuff, so he convinced me to go to work for his school district and another one. And but I had a low draft number at the time, and so it didn't take long, and I got drafted into the Army.
What year was that? What year was that? Do you remember?
Well, in 1971.
Okay.
So February 1st of 1971, I went in the military.
Mm-hmm.
And then I took basic training at Fort Dix. And then actually the person that was running the television studio and the Army was doing the same thing. They were making videos of training. And so he wanted me to stay there and go to work, but he never was able to get orders to stop. So I ended up with orders to Fort Sill, which was artillery. Mm-hmm. So I went there, but he said his counterpart at Fort Sill would get me orders to have me. Well, that never happened. So then we were considering going to OCS because now we were starting to figure out how the Army worked, and we were trying to somewhat avoid Vietnam because it was still going.
Yeah.
So then they approached me for EOD, and I got thinking about it, and I said, well, that's 6 more months or more of training. Uh,
So it was a stall tactic.
Yeah. So I said, well, that'll work. So I did that and made it through Indianet.
So Henry, I just have to ask, you went into training to be an EOD tech because did you have an interest in being a bomb tech? Did you?
No,
No.
I didn't even, to me, I didn't know anything about, I was doing artillery, so I knew about ordnance, and shells, and they, of course, explained the EOD a little bit, but no, it sounded interesting, but it was more about 6 more months of training and
Oh
then
my gosh,
getting
that's so
out.
funny.
It's so, yeah, I did, when you first get in and you're not, I mean, some young people really are into the military, but that's not where my head was. So
Yeah.
and then listening to other Vietnam era vets, they were thinking the same way. Anything to avoid Vietnam.
Wow.
But it didn't, it was a very common theme, and but obviously a lot of them couldn't avoid it no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway,
So there
I
you were in
started
EOD tech.
while
Can you
we're
tell
in
us?
the training.
Yeah.
So I went first I went to Fort McClellan for chemicals, and it was in July. And we had these suits, what they called then a butyl rubber suit, and just a gas mask and protective gear. And it was so hot that a lot of them quit or got sick, so a lot of them dropped out right then. But for some reason, I was able to stand the old suits and the temperature. So then I went on, and then they had to schedule me for Indianet. So I was there over a week waiting to get into Indianet, and went. I don't know if I went home for a little while or not, but anyway, I started, and Indianet is a beautiful Navy base below Washington, for those who don't know that. So it was really enjoyable. And again, I was telling a sailor today that I remember the food was, compared to Army food, was outstanding. So anyway, I started in, and then same thing, people dropped out or flunked out, and but I was fortunate to make it through. And then the next part of it was to where you were going to go to serve or join EOD team. And I saw there was one near my home in New York. So, of course, I put that as number one. And then Sergeant called me in, the one that did the assigning, and he says, "VanNess, I know what you're thinking." He says, "You think you're going to go home near your home and be about there." But he said, "It'll be nothing but trouble. You're a young man. You'll end up not getting to work on time. Then you'll be in trouble." He says, "So I'm going to send you to Fort Knox." And he said, "You'll enjoy it there. I can tell you there's a lot going on." And I was disappointed, but he was right.
How
And
funny.
it was in a big place, a lot going on. So that's how I got to Fort Knox. So then I just served there for the time I had left, and we did range clearance, and we destroyed a lot of deteriorated ammunition that the ammunition inspectors wanted to destroy. And Knox had an unlimited range, so we could blow up huge amounts of ammunition. And so that was interesting. We had to clear the cemeteries so the families could visit the cemeteries. That was part of the obligation. And so we'd ride around. We'd take our lunch with us in a Jeep and ride around Fort Knox in the spring to make sure all the cemeteries, we had a list and a map that were all clear. So, it took us, over a week to do that. So that was fun. And that just, every time on the practice range, a grenade or something didn't detonate, we'd have to go out and, destroy it so they could open the range back up. So but then the bigger thing was Secret Service protection. I happened to be right on election year.
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't believe it when the sergeant said, we're going to shop for clothes, and that was plain clothes. So we bought suits and stuff so we could work in plain clothes with the Secret Service.
Wow.
So that was really fun to travel with them and do, you'd do whatever. So I was with President Nixon at the American Legion Convention in Chicago.
Wow.
That was pretty exciting. And
what was he like? Do you remember anything that stuck out to you about President Nixon?
Well, he was just as he appeared on television. He was a gruff guy.
Mm-hmm.
He was cordial because he was a politician, but he was a pretty straight-laced guy. But he was running against George McGovern, who was the Democrat or the liberal. So I remember, he came first the day before, and I remember the kids, they were worried about him. There was so many young people trying to get in there, and they were pushing against the doors. This was at McCormick Place, which is huge in Chicago, and they were really concerned about if that got breached, how we'd handle the overwhelming amount of that.
Wow.
Yeah. So we were prepared for that. So we searched the area and made it safe, but then we went down and stood. The Chicago police gave us, I think I had 6 police officers. My area was over the stage, so I secured that, then left the policeman up there in the attic to make sure nobody got up there to do anything after that. And then we stood with the Secret Service agents, tried to be ready in case something happened. And but then the other significant thing was in the briefing for McGovern with the Secret Service, they said, so they explained that we needed to do this, that, and the other thing. But he said, we need to make sure we're ready for the boss when he comes tomorrow. So in other words, McGovern was a guinea pig for practicing to make sure we had all our ducks in a row when the boss came the next day. And believe me, when the President of the United States comes, it's very, very professional. It's a whole different demeanor, believe me. There's no monkeying around, or at least when I was there. So
that is funny.
So that was quite an experience to do all of that. And then, of course, we'd go out at night with those guys were young too. They wanted to go out and have a good time. And so we did that. So I did different ones of those, but never where the president was there. So I'm glad I got to do that.
Well, so that sounds like a pretty nice stint as an EOD tech.
Well, clearly. Then we traveled around. The police departments at that time didn't have bomb squads. So we either responded if they had an incident, or we went and we did a lot of training with the police departments. We'd go out and, stay out a few days and then go to each police department that we knew of, the sheriff's departments, and gave them some training about bombs and explosive hazards. So that was kind of fun. And then we worked alcohol, tobacco, and firearms as explosive responsibilities. So I remember, there was 2 of them that came to our unit every week. So I got to be friends with the one because I was the only one old enough to drink. So we'd get together on the weekends, and he and his roommate were single, so we hung out together. That was fun. But then we went on various incidents where they found, mostly in Kentucky and West Virginia, it was dynamite that they would find either at somebody's house or at an old mine or something like that. So again, back to it was exciting to be there, and there was a lot going on. And so that's kind of what it was like.
Nice,
Yeah.
Henry. That is really cool. Well, so after you got out of the military, you became involved with the American Legion, and you've had a lot of volunteering with them. Can you tell us about the American Legion?
Yeah. So a good friend of mine was a veteran, and he wanted me to join the American Legion as soon as I was in the military. So I joined, and then once I got out of the military and actually moved back to my hometown, my friend was involved in American Legion Baseball, which is a major program that the American Legion is involved with. A lot of Major League Baseball players started in high school and then American Legion Baseball.
Wow.
So I coached American Legion Baseball when my son was 8 in that age group in high school. But then I went on to be the county chairman and then the 6th district chairman. So I had to coordinate the tournaments and to determine the championship so that they could go on to a higher level. So the American Legion had a World Series or a national tournament every year in some location. Now they've got a permanent site. But so that's where I spent a lot of time, but I never really got involved with the operation of the post and the officers part. But then after I retired, I ended up, because I had lived right nearby, getting involved there. And I was doing the honor guard. So when a veteran dies and his family wants the military honors, I would take part in the honor guard. So I was on the firing squad to do that. So that I've done quite a lot of that and continue to do that. So that was the extent of, and I did a lot of the maintenance in the post, the building and all of that. But more recently, because of what goes on, in particular with my post, they've kind of lost their focus and the membership is really down. So I got a little frustrated and discouraged. So I just do the honor guard and that's about it. And then well, that opened the door for finding other things. I was part of Rotary in my community. So community service has been an important part of my life. So
Clearly. That is awesome. Which leads us to the fact that recently you decided to make a trip all the way from New York to Niceville, Florida.
Yeah.
So what inspired you to come all that way to volunteer with the EOD Warrior Foundation?
Over the years, I've stayed connected to law enforcement, and when you interact with other veterans and you say what you did in the military, and you say it's EOD, a lot of them were in awe. They said, "Oh my God," So, in the context of being stupid to monkey with explosives, to the fact that they understood that the school was extremely difficult to get through. So then I got more of a sense of what I accomplished by getting through EOD and being part of EOD. So that kind of, I continued to enjoy being involved with that kind of thing. So I had been coming to Florida at that point in my life every winter. So I realized it had been 50 years since I graduated from Indian Head.
Wow.
And that was, so that would have been in 2021.
Uh-huh.
So I somehow, I don't know if it was through the EOD Warriors or anyway, I got a hold of the school and inquired about taking a tour, visiting the school. So they agreed. And so I came down and toured the school and the memorial.
Mm-hmm.
So that really piqued my interest of coming back here and helping out. So I finally was able to do it this year to come down. But I've been doing the flag thing up of the ones around my hometown and in central New York.
Mm-hmm.
So I was involved with that.
The flag program through the foundation?
Yep. So
Yeah.
I found that on the website, and then I said, well, and then looked into it more, and then I said, well, I can certainly do that because, I was doing the veterans' graves anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And then I looked at that map and to see how many I was surprised of the ones buried right there in central New York.
For anybody who's listening, Henry, that might not know what we're talking about, do you want to briefly kind of describe that volunteer opportunity and what it kind of meant to you to be able to honor those techs?
Yeah, so it's a program the EOD Warrior Foundation created and created this database. So what you do is you go on the site, and there's a coordinator that works for you, Patricia,
Mm-hmm.
and you tell her the ones that you are interested in placing the flags, and then they return the more information about the cemetery. And so then what I learned was it's not that easy to find them because they don't have the actual grave site. And some of these cemeteries are huge.
Mm-hmm.
And so unless there's a legend, you could walk around looking all over not
Yeah,
knowing.
that is very true.
Yeah, some of these ones I've been putting on, they're veterans they were born in the early, like 1920s.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, and some of them, of course, got killed in action, but others just died of natural causes, but were known to be EOD techs.
Mm-hmm.
And in various ways, the training was different, obviously. There was even some of them before even Indian Head.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, you have to figure that out. So that takes some doing to understand what you got to do. If you can get a hold of somebody at the cemetery, that helps. Some have a legend. So there's various ways to do it, but it takes some time. So it's a challenge, but then you just, Patricia sends the flags or someone there that shows a soldier in a bomb suit and placing, and then it says, I forget the wording on it. So you just put that flag on the grave,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes there's other stuff on there, like an American flag that they put on Memorial Day,
Mm-hmm.
and like that. So
yeah, it's a wonderful program.
You take a picture of the flag and the headstone and any other information, and then you give them a salute, and that's the way it goes. So.
Yeah, that's right. I think it's a great program. I love it that we can honor all of our EOD techs that way. And thank you so much for helping us with that program. Can you tell us how your trip down to Niceville has been and your volunteering?
So it's been great. I mean, I just love meeting people and getting involved where I can be of help. I'm fortunate to be really healthy at this point in my life. And of course, the sun in Florida is an appeal. So anyway, I've met a lot of people, and then I'm trying to get one of the people I served with at Fort Knox ended up inventing the pan disruptor, and we're trying to get him nominated into the Army Ordnance Hall of Fame. So I'm working on that.
Wow, how neat.
And then Melissa Taggart is doing the Heritage Museum at the the Armament Museum the Air Force has.
Yeah.
So I've been helping her, and then I've been helping Crocker with the memorial. And then I get to talk to the young guys that are just getting started, and I mean, it goes on and on. So it's just it's been a great experience, and I look forward to doing some more.
Well, it's been a pleasure to meet you, Henry. And we just want to thank you for your volunteerism and just kind of spotlight an unlikely EOD tech. And
Thank you.
Yeah, unlikely. But, what I love is that EOD is such a tight-knit community. And we always say here at the foundation that EOD is family for life. And so you are a true testament to that. And we're so glad to have you back in the midst of things EOD.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Now as veterans and people involved, we have to look out for each other.
Yes, we do. Amen. That is right. Well, thank you so much, Henry, and thank you for taking the time to talk with us. I will end this podcast, as is our tradition, to ask you a couple questions about your favorite things. Okay. The first one: what is your favorite thing about retirement?
Of what?
About retirement.
Oh, retirement is being the freedom to do this kind of thing. It's varied in nature, and I'm willing to try anything that inspires me and where I can be of benefit or help in some ways.
That is awesome. You're living the dream right now.
Yeah, okay, I think so, for the most part. Never perfect, but
True. Okay, the next one is, what is your favorite restaurant?
It's up in New York, and it's in Auburn, New York. It's called Lasca's. L-A-C. Yes. And it's, I guess, primarily Italian, but it's got an unbelievable menu. So that's currently my favorite place. There was another one, but it's down. So.
Nice, Lasca's. So if you said it's in Auburn. Where was it?
Auburn, New York. Yeah.
Auburn, New York. Okay, cool. Awesome. What is your favorite vacation spot?
I'd have to say Florida. I mean, other than I live in the Finger Lakes, and it's beautiful there. So I've enjoyed boating and fishing and hunting. And I mean, it's Central New York is a very beautiful place. So, so that's my two favorite spots.
What part in Florida?
As where?
What part of Florida?
Well, this part, I do like it up here, but Punta Gorda is, I really like it down there, but circumstances have made it so, for now, I'm not down there. At some point, I may go back down there, but the cost is so great down here now, it's unreal. So.
Oh, wow. I've never been. Yeah. Interesting. Okay, last question. What is your favorite book?
Oh, well, I don't do a lot of reading, so I can't say there's really...
There's no favorite book?
What about... I read books as a young kid, but I like wildlife. Anything about animals and wildlife
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, that's great, Henry. Well, thank you so much again. And we wish you the very best in your retirement and look forward to keeping seeing you around.
Very good. I look forward to it.
Thank you for listening to our Behind the Warrior podcast, brought to you by the EOD Warrior Foundation. The EOD Warrior Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization serving the EOD community by providing financial assistance, scholarships, and providing hope and wellness resources for the active duty, reserve, National Guard, retired and veteran EOD communities and their families. We also honor our fallen and wounded EOD technicians by maintaining the EOD Memorial and Remembrance Garden. We do all this through the generosity of individual and corporate donors and sponsors. If you would like to assist the foundation or support our Behind the Warrior podcast, click the link on our webpage at eodwarriorfoundation.org or contact us at info@eodwarriorfoundation.org. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to tell a friend. The various opinions, beliefs, and viewpoints expressed by guests, contributors, and participants of the Behind the Warrior podcast are their own and are intended for informational purposes only. They do not necessarily reflect the opinions, beliefs, viewpoints, or policies of the EOD Warrior Foundation or its employees and volunteers.